Acha.
Yeah. He's Vikram.
Vikram, is it? Who is there now? Care Banjara?
In Care Banjara, Dr. Subramaniam is there. G. Ramasubramaniam.
I don't know him. I know all the seniors, right from Dr. Nayak, Dr. Saharia, Dr. Ashikar Chakravarti,
Okay.
and in Apollo, the entire group I know. But youngsters,
We
because
are not
at that
young now.
time, yeah, no,
Now
what
we have
I'm
become seniors. The seniors have become super seniors. So we have become.
yeah, at that time when we started Mohan Foundation in 2001,
Yeah.
I used to counsel, my husband used to counsel. So we used to be in touch with all the doctors. Now we don't do any counseling. We have our boys, so they take care of all the
Yeah.
counseling. So
Exactly.
we are not in direct touch with the doctors themselves. So we
Exactly.
take care of policy level
Okay, so
meetings.
sorry, yeah, we are live on YouTube.
Great.
The live stream to Facebook didn't work, but YouTube worked. So if you have to let people know, please
Yes.
let them know.
Patient engage YouTube.
Yeah, I'll let me at least share my screen so that we are announcing what we are doing, and I'll try and also send people the links. So just for everyone who's on Zoom, just give us a couple of minutes, and those watching on YouTube, we were supposed to go live on Facebook. Since we've not been able to, we are redirecting people onto YouTube. It should be showing live on Patients Engage YouTube channel. Okay, so let's get started. I don't want to, yeah, it is showing live on the Facebook channel. I mean, on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I will see if I can share as well. Okay, I've just shared with
Yeah,
all of you.
a couple of my colleagues have already joined.
Okay, great. All right, so let's get started. Thank you everybody for putting up with our technical challenges and the slight delay. So we are very pleased to partner with Mohan Foundation. And just a quick introduction, we are a younger organization. So Patients Engage is an online platform operational for over 5 years, focused on evidence-based and holistic management of chronic conditions, specifically from the perspective of patients and family caregivers. And we strongly believe in the value of lived experiences and how being informed and engaged leads to empowerment as well as better quality of life and better health outcomes. Today, we are here to talk about the topic of organ donation. And the reason for us doing that really is because it's part of our commitment to ensuring that patients with chronic diseases have better health outcomes and can lead productive lives. And transplants is a key element of that as well. Today we have with us, I'm starting with in no specific order, but starting with Mrs. Lalitha Raghuram, whose family donated their son's organs. And she's also the country director of Mohan Foundation, which is the longest running organization in the space of organ transplant in India, diseased organ transplant specifically. We have with us Dr. Nagesh, who's the chief cardiac surgeon and director heart transplant program with Gleneagles Global Hospital and Care Hospitals. We have 2 heart transplant recipients with us. We have Shweta, who is a heart transplant recipient and lives in Hyderabad. And we have Rishi Ganguly, who is also a heart transplant recipient and lives in Mumbai. So I think it's a quick reminder always, we do this for all our webinars, is that the information here is based on the experience of panelists, but it's not to be taken as medical advice. So if you have specific issues, please do consult your doctor specifically. This session is being recorded, so if you're logged into Zoom, you can post your questions on the Q&A. If you are on YouTube, you can put your questions or comments on the live feed. We will pick that up. And unfortunately, we are not on Facebook right now. And you can always reach us at any of our social handles or write to us at editor@patientsengage.com. So I won't take up too much time. I think we have a lot of useful topics to talk about, and it's an area which people are not too aware of. So let's start with, I think, the need for diseased organ donation, and also maybe Lalitha, if you can differentiate or explain what is diseased organ donation and why we need this organ donation day and the focus on building awareness.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Aparna, for having me here for this webinar. So when we talk about organ donation, organ donation is all about giving the gift of life. So in the case of living organ donation, which, a lot of them know about, it is done by a person who is alive, where they give a, an organ or a part of an organ. For example, since we are born with 2 kidneys, we can give 1 kidney, we can donate 1 kidney. And liver, because the liver is a large organ and it has a left lobe and a right lobe, a part of the liver can also be donated. So in our country, more than 90% of the transplants are live organ transplants. In the case of kidney failure, one of the family members, whether it's a wife or a brother or a father or a mother or a sibling, now with the amendments to the Transplantation of Human Organs Act, the grandparents and grandchildren also can donate a kidney. So live kidney transplants are very, very common in our country. Similarly, live liver transplants are also quite common. The largest live liver transplant program is in Medanta, Delhi. But what happens in the live transplants? The donor and the recipient, both of them have to undergo a surgery. For the recipient, this is inevitable. But for a donor, it is not inevitable. It is because somebody within their family is suffering, they are giving one of their organ or part of the organ. But in the case of deceased organ donation, nobody alive needs to be subjected for an unwanted surgery. Instead of burning or burying the body, a brain dead person can give a new lease of life to at least 8 or 9 people. I'm saying at least. Our 2 eyes can see this world. Our 2 kidneys can give a new lease of life to 2 people, because one person can be, one can lead absolutely normal life with one kidney. The liver can be split into 2 and can be given to a child and an adult. Our pancreas can be donated, our heart can be donated. Tissues like our heart valves can be donated, and our skin can be donated. In fact, bones, tendons, ligaments, cartilages, all of this can be donated. So that is why we at Mohan Foundation promote deceased organ donation. Our guiding light is don't burn or bury the body, donate your organs. And we always say that through deceased organ donation, you are not losing anything. You're not losing a single rupee. You don't have to spend a single rupee. By that one yes, where you give a consent to the family, you are giving a new lease of life to 8 or 9 people. And by giving life to 8 or 9 people, you are actually helping 8 or 9 families. It could be the breadwinner of the family, or it could be a child in the family, or it could be a young adult who just got married. When you give an organ to them, they are able to go back to leading normal lives. Imagine if somebody has a kidney failure and inevitably a family member of that patient has to go to the dialysis center along with the patient, spend the whole day or at least a half a day in the dialysis, outside the dialysis unit, carry water, carry lunch for them. So the caregivers also go through a lot of trauma. So all this can be avoided if more and more people come forward to make a deceased organ donation. Like I said, 90% of the transplants in our country are live organ transplants. When you look at the Western world, it's just the reverse. 90% of the transplants are deceased organ transplants, only 10% are live transplants. So we are working towards reversing the trend in our country also.
Right. Thank you, Lalita. Doctor, there is this concept of brain death, right? So can you explain how in a hospital it is determined whether a patient is brain dead?
Most of the times, you consider a patient brain dead when the brain seems to stop functioning. And this is practically done by the neurologist, as assessed by the neurologist, as well as the neurosurgeon, and there is the anesthetist who is present on duty. So we test the patients. One is a CT scan is done, a CT brain angio, cerebral angio, to see whether there is any flow going to the brain or not. And the other thing is a apnea test. The apnea test is basically you disconnect the ventilator from the patient and wait and watch whether the patient will breathe on his own. So if that reflex of breathing is present, then the brain is alive. So, and if it is not there, then it's not alive. So this brain death test is again repeated, or the apnea test is again repeated after 6 hours. So after 2 apnea tests or positive apnea tests, then only the declaration of brain death is given.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So coming back to, so continuing on that, doctor, because sometimes there is this feeling that, how is the patient's interest safeguarded?
Yeah.
Because there's
So
a lot of
actually,
concern that, sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once the brain death is declared or is assessed by the doctors, this is done by a team which is totally independent of the in-house doctors. And wherever the donations have to happen, or for whichever organ the donations have to happen, those doctors and all are not involved in this decision-making process.
Right.
And once everything is settled down, then you have to inform the local body which is present, the organ donation body. Like in Telangana, we have Jeevan Dan, the Noto there, which is the donations scheme place office. So these people have to be intimated. So they send their representative and check whether everything is in line with the requirements. And an FIR is lodged. The police, the police people, the forensic people come, and then they attest that everything is fine. And Panchnama, the police guy, also comes and he gives a clearance. Then only the patient is ready for a donation.
Right. Okay. So I guess the one question, Lalita, that I have is that if you can explain the process, because people are very confused. Like you can pledge organs in multiple websites these days.
Yes.
How does the process of pledging translate to, kind of awareness at the hospital level? And yeah, at least start with that first.
So, what is a pledge? Let's first examine what a pledge is. I am conveying my wish to make an organ donation after my death.
Mm,
So, that's a pledge. So, I carry a donor card with me. And the most important thing when you pledge your organs is to tell your family. If you don't tell your family, your pledge is of no use, because tomorrow I'm on ventilator and I am declared brain dead. I'm not the one going to call, Mohan Foundation or any similar agency to make an organ donation. It's the
right.
family that has to be invested in this cause. So that is why we say organ donation is all about family tradition. Everyone in the family has to be equally enthused to make an organ donation happen. So that's the first step.
Mm,
So the decision makers have to be part of this. The second step is when a brain death happens in a hospital, what
mm,
happens? So a lot of them ask me, how are we going to know, what is the link? How are you going to ensure that my donation happens?
right.
So when a brain death happens in the hospital, most of the all the transplant centers mandatorily, according to the Transplantation of Human Organs Act, has to have a trained transplant coordinator who is trained in counseling the families for organ donation.
Right.
So all large hospitals will have a transplant coordinator. That's one. Even if the brain death does not happen in a licensed transplant center,
Mm,
most of the hospitals know about organ donation. They know about the central agency. Like Dr. Nagesh mentioned about Jivandan in Hyderabad, there is ZTCC in Mumbai, there is Jivasartakate in Karnataka. So there are local government bodies, and most of the hospitals know about these local bodies. So they reach out to them, and the transplant coordinators from there go and counsel the family and motivate them to donate their loved ones' organs. And
right.
if they give consent, there is a certain stipulated form, a consent form, according to the Transplantation of Human Organs Act, where the next of kin has to sign on the consent form along with two witnesses. So once the consent is obtained,
Mm,
there are two things that are possibilities. One is it depends upon what is the cause of brain death.
right.
If the cause of brain death is due to a road traffic accident,
Mm,
any road traffic accident, as you know, are medico-legal cases. They are subjected to, police verification.
right.
So when a death happens, in the case of road traffic accident victims, it has to be, if once the consent is obtained, it has to be notified to the local police. The local police will come to the hospital and talk to the family and write the panchanama. And then they give us a go ahead. Simultaneously, the local forensic authorities have to be notified. They will
Right.
also come and look at the body, examine, and then, they will look at the medical record and then they will give us a go ahead. Once these two agencies give us a go ahead, only then, simultaneously, we also talk to the local government body, that is Jivandan in case of Telangana, saying that there is a potential organ donor and that the family has given consent.
Mm,
So in the background, they take care of organ distribution. In most of the cases, because if the organ donation is happening in a transplant licensed transplant center, one kidney is retained in the same hospital for their own patients. The
right.
second kidney goes for distribution to the organ sharing pool. And if the center is also doing a liver transplant, it is most likely that the liver will also go to them. And
Right.
then the heart will be distributed depending upon the viability of the organs. So
Right.
Jivandan is the one that takes care of organ distribution. So most of these donations happen, the organ retrievals happen in the night, because during the day the theater is engaged for regular surgeries.
Right.
So
Right.
we obtain the consent, and
Mm,
according to Transplantation of Human Organs Act, two brain death declarations have to happen with a gap of, with an interval of 6 hours. In the
Right.
case of children, it has to happen with a gap of at least 15, to 24 hours.
Hmm.
So when all of this is happening in the background, the ICU doctors maintain the brain dead donor. The potential donor has to be maintained because the brain is completely dead.
Hmm.
When the brain is dead, the brain is the controller of the body. When the brain
Right.
is dead, all our other organs also start acting up.
Right.
So the intensivists have to ensure that the heart, the liver, the kidneys are all functioning to the optimal level.
Right.
That is what we call brain death maintenance. So the ICU doctors take care of that. The transplant coordinators and the other, administrative managerial staff take care of coordinating with the police and forensic bodies. And again, the transplant coordinator takes care of informing Jivandan, the local government body. They also in turn distribute the organs to the other hospitals. So the transplant coordinator has to coordinate with all those hospitals and fix a time for organ retrieval. And at
Right.
that time, all the retrieval teams come together. If the transplant coordinator says the organs are going to be retrieved at 12 midnight, all the teams come together and the potential donor is wheeled into the operating room.
Right.
And once the donor is wheeled into the operating room, all the retrieval teams work together. First, the heart is retrieved.
Hmm.
Organ retrieval is, like an open heart surgery. From the throat until the navel, we open up. First, the heart is retrieved, then the liver is retrieved, then the kidneys are retrieved. It
Hmm.
is in this order, it is normally retrieved. Finally, the IBAN team will come and take the corneas. So, this entire process takes about 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours also.
Right.
So
Right.
when we take the consent from the family asks us the first and foremost question,
Correct.
when will you give us the body?
Correct. That was my next question. Right.
Yeah. So they will ask us. So we do, we work backwards. We do our own math. How long will the forensic and, the police take to come and give us the go ahead?
Hmm.
Then we fix up, with the theater. When is the theater going to be ready? Then
Right.
the retrieval, and then we try and give the body to the family by 5 o'clock. By sunrise, we try and give the body so that they can take the body home, or if they are going to the nearby village, they are able to do that. So
Right.
this is the case. The entire process could take anywhere between 12 to 18 hours.
Right.
So this is the most difficult part. That is why we say the transplant coordinators are not transplant counselors. They are transplant coordinators because they have to coordinate with various agencies and various departments within the hospital.
Right. Right.
If it is a simple, intracerebral bleed, a brain hemorrhage case, it's not a medico-legal case. It's a non-MLC. So the
Right.
police or the forensic authorities are
Is
not
not required.
involved in this. So it
Right.
becomes a very simple case and we'll be able to hand over the body much earlier to the families.
Right.
So every transplant coordinator is in the know of all these things. So they respond to the families accordingly.
Okay. Thank you. Let's get Rishi and Shweta on as well. If you can come on, please. So Rishi, first of all, tell us a bit as to when did you have your transplant and how has your life changed? Describe your life before and after the transplant.
Yeah, so I was a heart transplant patient, and I received a heart from a wonderful person whose family donated it. So I was having a condition for about 10 years called DCM, dilated cardiomyopathy, which is a lot of fatigue, breathlessness, don't have the energy for doing work, can't run up a flight of stairs, can't lift any heavy weights, suitcases, nothing like that. So basically, before that, it was mostly fatigue for 10 years, and it just went down.
Hmm.
And I had the heart transplant last year on March 30th. I got the call on the 29th night at 11 p.m. saying that come tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and if it's a good heart, we'll proceed with the operation. If it's not, we'll send you back home. And that was it. That was it. Just okay, go. Just go.
Mm.
And I went. Got the heart transplant happened, and I think I woke up that night or the next morning after the surgery, and it's been fabulous since then. They told me that you take about 3 to 4 weeks to be in the hospital till everything is okay. But I think by the fourth day they said, you're doing amazing and you can go back home in a week. And I was like,
Mm.
we were supposed to clean up the flat, an apartment, so that there's no infection and all of that stuff. He said, no, you can stay in the hospital if you want, but as far as we're concerned, you're ready to go. When everything is checked out perfect.
Right.
So, yeah, and ever since then, all right, life has been amazing. I'm just so blessed, so grateful, and so happy. And I don't know, I can just go on, but I don't think
Right.
it's time to say all
Right.
fabulous things. Yeah.
Right. And how did it, I mean, had you thought about organ donation before, and how did it change your views on organ donation?
So, like everybody, I'm assuming organ donation is like, oh yeah, that's that other thing that
Mm.
wo bhi hota hai is dunya mein, right? And I know my brother was kind of heavy on it. My younger brother was president of Rotary. He's still part of Rotary and stuff, and so we got to know a lot of things about organ donation. But he had got a doctor on skin and eyes donation, and but that's it. I never heard about that. I think a friend of mine did a transplant, but I didn't really register at that time.
Mm.
But now it's been like it's so fabulous that every time, if at all, the conversation comes up, and oh, you've been through a heart transplant, I don't miss the opportunity to tell them all about it and why it's so important. And like, this is my will. I've changed. I spoke to my brother. I spoke to my wife. I spoke to my children. As Lalita was saying, that it's a family because I know my wife and kids are not going to be as comfortable about it. My brother, I can rely on. Like, Tushar, you gotta do this when the time comes, right? You gotta be the tough guy to take the tough decision, tough call, because it's gonna be like we only have so much time to get the thing. So, in fact, I was so happy. My wife took the call because I remember my heart that was taken out, although it was very dilated, as Lalita mentioned, even the valves or something from the heart can be taken. So some of my heart that was taken out, some part was again able to be reused from that for some other patient. So that felt good, and my wife took that call, so that was good. But I wasn't dying; I was actually getting a new life, so that was
Right.
easy. Somebody died brain dead situation, right? And I even go through the whole process of explaining what brain dead is. But I'm very happy that Dr. Nagesh explained what brain dead is. It's given me clarity on what that is. So I'm gonna like save this recording and say, guys, watch this video. It's recorded. Understand what
Right.
it is all about, and I even enjoyed the insights that Lalita gave about the whole thing. So there's more material. That's so. I'm glad you did this, Aparna. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Thanks, Rishi. Shweta, can you join as well? You're still on, yeah, off camera, and you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
So, from your perspective, how did your life change after a transplant?
I got a surgery in 2018. 18,
Hmm.
ma'am. 18th May.
Right.
One second, Priya, instead of Shweta, can I explain that?
Let her talk first, and then, if required, you can explain.
No problem. Because she is feeling a little nervous. So just
Yeah,
thought
I
of
know. It's
covering
okay.
up.
It's okay.
Just, just thought of covering her so that she will comfortable on that.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So I'll just take over. So when my wife delivered a second baby in 2015, sometime in the mid of the year. So as soon as she delivered, after 4 hours, she had a breathlessness problem. So then doctor said that it's a postpartum cardiomyopathy.
Mm-hmm.
So we almost took a medication for 2 years, hoping that it will be recovered. But almost after 2 years, around sometime in 2018 Feb, her heart was failed twice. So then we had taken over to our cardiologist, who is treating her from last 1.5 year, and he said that it's a time for her to get a heart transplantation. So, and luckily, the cardiologist and Nagesh are the best friends, our colleagues. I can say that. So he advised me to reach out to Dr. Nagesh, and after when we are as soon as she discharged from the hospital in the month of April in 2018, so we just move over to global for a pre-checkup procedures. And after the pre-checkup procedures, within 1 month we got a heart. And on 19th on 19th we got a call, on 18th we got a call from doctor saying hospital saying that there is an heart is available for transplantation, so can you come over?
Right.
So we reached around 10:30, 11 o'clock in the night in the hospital, and around 7 a.m. in the morning of next day they started the procedure.
Right.
And
Right.
around 2 p.m. they conveyed that the surgery was successful and she need to be put in observation for 48 hours.
Right. Right.
I'm very grateful to the people who ever thought that after their life someone need to live with the organs whatever they have donated. I am very grateful to them till my life. I'll myself and my wife will grateful to them, whoever supported and whoever donated their organ. And that's a great experience because my wife was little worried, and I need to take a decision. My mother-in-law and doctor suggested that uh, this is the only option you have, and we do not have any other option, so it's a 50-50 chances. So but we need to take. So I have a faith in a doctor, and I have faith in my uh, prayers and everything, and all the
Right.
blessings of the people. So it really helped me and everything. It's almost 2.5 years now.
Right.
We are doing well, and thanks to all the medical faculty who are supporting us, Dr. Nagesh and team.
Yeah, we seem to have lost Dr. Nagesh again. So yeah, thanks,
So,
thanks, thanks,
thank
Shweta
you.
and
Venkat.
Venkat. Thanks,
Thank you, ma'am.
thanks. So while we wait for Dr. Nagesh, because I had a follow-up question to him, but let me ask you, Lalitha, you are also a donor family, right? So if you can talk about your experience a little bit as to how did you go about making that decision, and what was your reaction when you were approached, etc. So if you can talk a little bit about that, would appreciate that.
Sure. My son's name is Swami Narayan. He was born on 13th January 1985. So in 2004, he was 19 years old. He was in second year engineering,
Right.
studying in Chennai.
Right.
So for Pongal vacation,
Hmm.
he came to Hyderabad.
Hmm.
And as you know, Pongal falls on January 14th or 15th
Right.
sometimes.
Right. Right.
So 13th, he was born. So he went out with his friends on the evening of his birthday.
Hmm.
And four of his friends went in a car,
Hmm.
and two of them received severe head injuries.
Hmm.
So this happened on the night of 13th, and uh, I came to know about this only on the morning, early morning of 14th, because he had told me that he was going to stay back in his friend's place in the outskirts of Hyderabad, in their farmhouse, and watch cricket match.
Right.
So, somewhere around that area they have met with an accident, and my son was very tall, he was 6'2",
Hmm.
and on the very same day my father had MI, and he was admitted in Global Hospital
Hmm.
on 13th morning. So
Hmm.
I was in the ICU with my father. In
Hmm.
the evening, I went back home. My brother was there to take care of my father.
Hmm.
And, I have a daughter also who is exactly 5 years apart. She was born 13th January 1990.
Wow. Hmm.
So she was only 14 years old, so she was still in school. So she was at home with me. And early morning of 14th, I got a call from somebody saying, can I speak to Swami's father, Swami's father? So I said, Swami's father is not there. I'm Swami's mother. Tell me what happened.
Hmm.
So he said, Swami met with a small accident. Please come to Kamineni Hospital.
Hmm.
So I said, what happened? He said, nothing, nothing, just come to the hospital. So immediately I called my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, all three of us with my daughter, four of us, we went to Kamineni Hospital.
Hmm.
And we found my son completely unconscious. He was still in the emergency.
Hmm.
And, my son loves branded clothes a lot. And he was wearing, he was in jeans and t-shirt, and he had an expensive watch which was missing.
Hmm.
And then he was completely unconscious, and immediately he was put on ventilator.
Hmm.
There was not a single scratch on his body.
Hmm.
He just had severe internal head injuries. And he was put on ventilator. At that time, my husband was working in Pune.
Hmm.
So I called him, and he came that night. And, several doctors, several intensivists, because I was already in Mohan Foundation at that time.
Okay, you were already at Mohan. Okay.
Yes. In 2001, we started Mohan in Hyderabad.
Hmm.
So I was already doing a lot of counseling, talking to families of brain dead patients. So when my son was in Kamineni, a lot of doctors said, Lalita, we completely understand if you don't donate your son's organs.
Hmm.
He was progressing to brain death, and we knew that he was in a condition where he was not going to come back.
Right.
Several intensivists from other hospitals also came and took care of him. In fact, the entire ICU was cordoned off. Only my son and that other boy were there. There were at least 300, 400 people, my friends, all the doctors. They had all come, and there was a big queue outside the ICU to see my son.
Right.
So then I said, everyone said, you don't be, if somebody says that you have to donate organs, it's not necessary that you should definitely donate. As a mother, you may have other thoughts, so we will completely respect that.
Hmm.
But then my husband, I, and my daughter, my mother-in-law, all of us said, we cannot bring back my son.
Hmm.
All that we can do is to ensure that we have him in others,
Hmm.
and that's something that is in our control.
Right.
We cannot bring him back. We are not going to be able to keep his body at home. So
Right.
we decided to donate his organs. His eyes, his kidneys, and liver were donated.
Right. Right.
So even now we live with that gratitude that you know he lives
Hello.
he lives on.
Yes, I am on.
He continues to
Yeah,
live
thank you,
more than
doctor.
so many
Yeah,
people.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. And did you, I mean, did you ever think that, okay, you know, because he was so young, you wouldn't have had the conversation with him, right? So did you kind of think that would he have wanted this or anything like that? Or because of your
We,
work in Mohan, you know, it was something that you kind of felt
you
very
know, Aparna,
strongly about?
I have a long innings in banking.
Hmm.
I worked in LV Prasada Institute, and I was
Okay.
for 10 years in iBank Association of India promoting eye donation.
Right, right. Okay.
So when I go to make presentations on eye donation and all, my children used to be with me in some, in the evenings or during the weekends. I used to take them. And I still remember that, one of my neighbors, um, she used to be working in State Bank of India, and her mother-in-law passed away.
Hmm.
And when she passed away, you know what my son did? He was only 6 years old. So he pulled my pillow and he said, Mummy, eye donation. Mummy,
Hmm.
eye donation. He said, I said, yeah, I will ask them. So he said that, she could donate her eyes.
Right,
So I
right,
spoke to this lady and she said, yes, of course, I'd like to donate my mother-in-law's eyes.
right,
And her eyes were donated.
right,
So when we do something, we keep discussing about this, but we didn't discuss about organ donation per se. But I
right,
know for a fact that everyone is for the cause.
right,
Yeah,
right. Thank you. Thank you, Lalita.
thank you.
Dr. Nagesh, coming to you, right? I mean, I know we heard from Shweta and we heard from uh, Rohit, Rishi on the challenges they face, but can you talk about what happens when people are, you know, have end stage heart organ failure or heart failure and are struggling on the waiting list because the waiting list is quite long in India, right?
First, to address the first question, whenever your heart is weak, the
Hmm.
problem with the heart is basically a pump. And if it is unable to function properly, you will be unable to do even your day-to-day activities. Like walking up to the bathroom will be a big task.
Right,
Just bending will be a big. Some patients have difficulty even on sleeping or lying down, because when you lie
right,
down, the dynamics of the heart pumping and all changes. So they have to sit then only there. So most of them are awake for years or months before they get a checkup and then get a transplant. And the
right.
biggest problem in our is getting to a diagnosis. So a lot of
Hmm.
times, even the heart is weak. Now, suppose a guy has reached 50 to 55 years, he starts thinking he is old enough for retirement. So
Right.
whenever has a breathlessness, they think, I'm getting old, so that's why it's maybe something related to my joints. They
Hmm.
never want to venture into thinking that there may be a problem with the heart. So you are so scared of it that you don't even want to think about it. You can
Right.
think about gas being a problem. You can think about other headaches or anything except the heart. And most of the times, it's always the heart which is the culprit.
Hmm.
And so by the time they reach you, when the body starts swelling because the heart is not pumping properly, the patient is unable to walk or unable to breathe. So most of them are in such a very bad shape, but that by the time they reach you, most of them are already not able to be treated or surgically corrected.
Hmm.
And there is a problem at the physician level also, because a lot of times they don't know that heart transplants happen, or a lot of transplants happen in India, because we think these are things which are for the big cities only. So in the smaller towns where the patients first go to the physicians and all, since we are all super specialists, we depend on a referral where the physician will send it to you. But the
Right.
physician is not educated enough to understand that heart transplants happen, or these transplants happen, and these patients have to be referred to a higher center. They start managing it at their level, and once it crosses their heads, then only they refer them. So by the
Hmm.
time the patient reaches the tertiary hospital, he is already in a very bad shape. So once the patient reaches, then you start, then the mental preparation, as madam was saying, you have to convince the patient's family that he requires a transplant. The
Right.
moment they hear that he requires a transplant, they say, can we try some other options? Can he be cured without a medication? Can he be cured without a surgery and all those things? So then you have to convince them and then show them the results of a transplant, and then how life changes once the transplant happens.
Correct.
And it brings a lot of positivity in them, and you have to instill, because they are so low on confidence and everything, that you have to instill that confidence that you'll be back on your toes, and life will be the same again, or if not the same again, it will be as perfectly possible as it can be, and it
Right.
won't be much worse than what they are already facing. And the
Right.
best part is the family. So if transplant is such a wide thing where the support of the family is the biggest major factor. So
Mm.
once a transplant is done, even if a transplant is done and the patient does not have any person to look after him, or the family does not understand the seriousness of the operation, or they don't take this operation seriously, then there's
Right.
no point wasting so many manners. Like madam had already told, the whole process when you do for a transplant, the whole operation theater milieu and all is something like 3 or 4 teams coming from different hospitals collecting the organs. Patients are in the waiting list for so many months, and
Mm.
then suddenly you have a transplant. It's something like a mini fair which going in and around and all those things. But it's a serious affair. So if the patient's attendants and the family members don't understand the seriousness, and they just think, yeah, it's like some simple operation, regular operation which everyone is doing, then the results are always suboptimal.
Right.
So in these situations, the patient family plays a bigger role than the patient himself. So
Right.
today, that's one more aspect which lacking in India. We don't have psychiatric consultations. The moment you say a psychology or a psychiatric consultation, it again brings a taboo to it. What will people say that I am meeting a psychiatrist? Whereas here, when you say a psychiatrist, it's always that you are mad. It's not that you have problems. Everyone has problems, but you don't want to address them.
Right.
So, but in transplant, these are very important because patients are affected psychologically. Patients require lots of patients require a lot of mental support, physical, everything. So the
Right.
hospital can provide you all the treatment guidelines, but the physical and the mental support has to come from the family.
True. True. Thank you. Thank you, doctor.
And during these,
Sure. Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
during these times of low cardiac output or whatever it is, when the heart is failing, most of the patients can have multiple admissions to the hospital.
Hmm.
We have, our problem is, as I think you mentioned that we have a long waiting list in our country. Our
Right.
problem is not a waiting list. Our problem is not the waiting list. Our problem is donations. We have patients, but
Hmm.
the donations which happen in our country are negligible.
Hmm.
So the main root of the problem is not at the or at the patient or waiting list level. It's mainly at the organ donation level. So
Right.
if we can regularize it more, because as madam had already told, it's such an intrinsic and a long process of convincing the patient's family to donate organs, that it takes out of 10 patients who may have a brain death or a road traffic accident, maybe only one patient on an average ends up donating. The
Right.
other rest of the 9 people don't donate.
Yeah.
So the problem is more donations.
Correct. Correct. Just a question on, we've got one of the couple of questions that have come in, which are both similar. One says that if I have diabetes or if I have hypertension, can I still be considered for, am I still fit to be a donor?
Yeah, they can be donated. You can be a donor. You can be a donor even at the age of 80 years.
Right.
So because some organ will be useful for them.
Right.
The criteria for donations are, you can donate any organ, like eyes are there. If the eyes are not affected by diabetes, then the cornea and all can be transplanted. You can use the heart. Most times, if diabetic, the heart may not be appropriate, but the kidneys will be there. The kidneys may function well, and
Hmm.
there are lungs which can be taken up. And nowadays, pancreas is also being used. So yeah, you can use them. You can. There is no age for not being able to be donated.
Okay, thank you. Um, Lalita, one question that keeps coming up is, you answered the question about when the family gets the body back for last rites, but does the body look mutilated? Does the body, yeah, what is the
Appearance.
appearance of the body, the
There is
deformation?
absolutely no change in appearance at all in the donor's body, Aparna. Uh,
Hmm.
like I said, the first question when we start counseling, these days it is not so much, but in the initial years, like in 2001, I still remember, how will you give the body was the first question they asked. They thought,
Right.
we will wrap it up like in a gunny bag and give it to them or something like that. But I told them this is like an open heart surgery, a very, very neat surgery. Unless and until you tell the other family members that the organs were donated, nobody would ever know that the organs were actually donated. There is a slight dent in the chest. That's about it. Otherwise, there is absolutely no change in the way the body looks. And they also ask, can we do the final cremation? Some of them ask whether we can bathe the body. All of that is absolutely eminently possible. There is
Hmm.
no change in the way the body looks. And some people, that too, again, in the initial years, people used to say, I'm scared my villages will say something, so I don't want to, face backlash from them. So I want to ensure that there is no change in the way the body looks. So we tell them that unless you want to tell the other villages that you have donated, you can choose not to tell them also, but there is no change. But on the other hand, I constantly, in a very positive way, always encourage them to tell everyone about donation,
Right.
because it gives a sense of pride for them.
Right.
And in two cases, I still remember when the donors were from a nearby village. Their sarpanch came.
Hmm.
Sarpanch came, and we had to convince the sarpanch to tell the family that it's a good thing. So the
Hmm.
sarpanch said, "Hey, it's a very good thing. Go ahead and do it," he said. So when the
Right.
sarpanch said, they felt very nice. They felt stronger. So
Hmm.
he went and promoted organ donation. So we used him as the ambassador. So you have to do certain things in a very smart way also. So that sense of pride is very important. And
Correct. Correct.
from the experience that we learned from the first couple of donors, what we started doing is, we made the donor a hero.
Hmm.
So we said we will do a small story about their loved one and asked for a picture of theirs. And we said we will write about them and tell us about them. So I used to sit with the family and ask them. So
Right.
I like to write stories. I'm a storyteller. So
Hmm.
I sit down and write down the story, and I read it out to them. And if they're okay with that, then by 3 o'clock the next day, I would send off the press release to everyone. And I also made sure that we give the phone numbers of two of the family members who can be contacted if the media people want to interview them. So I
Right.
take their permission for the print media as well as the electronic media if they are open to talking to them. And if they are okay with that, I say donor's brother-in-law, donor's sister, give them the phone numbers in the press release also. So they used to feel that sense of pride. When we call them, normally call them after a day after the donations to find out, if is everything okay, did the cremation go well, I hope you didn't have any problem, that sort of things. So they
Right.
feel very nice.
Hmm.
And nowadays people have also started inviting us for 10th day, 13th day ceremonies also.
Good. Good.
So,
That's good to hear.
so
Yeah.
that donor engagement is very, very important. So when
Right.
we call them for organ donor days, the felicitation program, or if there is a TV show, they come. They talk with pride, and that is what is very important. Not just the donor families, it's also important, like, we have the heart transplant recipients here. They
Right.
should also say how they benefited. Like Rishi said, that happy face. People want to see that happy face and say, wow, it changed my life. Instead
Correct.
of, 3 weeks in the hospital, within 1 week, I bounced back to life. In fact, for people like me, it feels so nice.
True.
We are putting our lifetime into this cause. So we'd like
Correct.
to see such happy faces. It makes a lot of difference. They all act as ambassadors to organ donation and transplant.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Thanks. And one other thing, do you also seek the help of religious leaders sometimes?
yes, of
You
course.
do. Because
Uh,
there are some concerns still on that,
yes,
right? So,
yes. So in 2012, we organized a religious leaders confluence called Sant Sangama
hmm,
in Bangalore. All the religious leaders came together, Hindu, Muslim, Christians, in fact, from the Dalai Lama sect, the Buddhists, everyone came forward and they unanimously endorsed organ donation. And
right,
from the synopsis of that confluence, we made a 6-minute film also called Religion and Organ Donation. It's available on our website, for easily, freely downloadable.
okay,
So everyone said it's a very good thing. And in fact, some of the religious leaders said people who propagate organ donation also, let their families and let the generations down, also benefit, from this great
right,
work that you are doing. So everyone unanimously endorsed organ donation.
right,
Yes.
right. And the question, I think, final question, we do have people who've said that, I wanted to donate my entire body, to for medical students, etc.
Yeah.
Is it the same process? And it's either for you, Dr. Nagesh or Lalita, I'm okay with any of you. Is it the same process or is it a different
So body
process?
donation is a different process.
Right,
We in Mohan Foundation facilitate eye donation, organ donation, and body donation.
okay,
So body donation, so the purpose of eye donation is to give vision to two people through our corneas.
right,
The purpose of organ donation is to give the gift of life to as many people as possible.
mm,
The purpose of body donation is practice and research for medical students. So
correct,
bodies are given to medical colleges, not to
right,
hospitals.
right,
So the Department of Anatomy in the medical college is the one that receives our body if somebody wants
mm,
to donate body. So
right,
when somebody says, I have donated my body, I always correct them and I say, are you talking about organ donation or
mm,
body donation? People don't
right. They don't understand
quite
the difference.
understand the difference.
Correct, correct,
So when you are saying body donation, you are donating your entire body for practice and research purposes. So we
right,
have a tie-up with all the medical colleges, and when somebody wants to donate their body, if they call us, we will facilitate the entire process, and we tell them that the body has to be taken to the medical college and handed over there, and the immediate family members have to give the consent, and there has to be an ID of the donor also, so that tomorrow we don't have any legal problems. So all
right,
those formalities are taken care of by the medical colleges itself. There is a shortage of bodies in the medical colleges, and they are asking us, they keep asking us. We do a lot of awareness programs along with the medical colleges also, and promote body donation. So we coordinate. And on the other side, there are a lot of people coming forward to donate their bodies. In fact,
correct,
I want to tell you that there are a lot of older people who come to our office and say, our children are abroad. I don't want to trouble them. I want to, ensure that my body is donated to a good cause. If my body is donated to the medical college, my children don't even have to bother about all, the cremation formalities and all. I want to be of good use to the society. So a lot of
right,
them are coming forward to do body donation also, and that is eminently possible. In the case of organ donation, we give back the body, but in the case of body donation, the body is donated to the medical college. So that's the
right,
difference.
right. Okay.
This
Rishi,
happens also from the hospital side also.
from the
Sorry, say that
hospitals
again.
are also. Yeah.
Yeah, because if the patient is admitted in the hospital and he dies and he has a wish or he conveys the wish that he wants his body to be donated rather than the ye. So most of the times the patients, the donors, family members and all facilitate the last darshan which happens in the year, and instead of taking the patient home, the darshan and all is done in the hospital, and then the patient is shifted directly to the hospital.
Okay.
So, or the medical college where he wants to go, and this is facilitated by hospitals also.
Right. Right. Okay. And one question on this, we talked of brain death, we talk of death happening in the hospital, but supposing a person dies at home, then, are the organs still usable? What organs are usable for?
Most times it's only the eyes.
Only the eyes. And tissues
Yeah.
or not even tissues?
No.
Heart valves.
Because,
Heart valves. If they are young, if they are young, we can, we have had, like if the death happens in any other smaller hospital and it's a cardiac death, it's when the heart stops beating, we call it circulatory death or cardiac death. So in such cases, if it's not a brain death, but the common man does not know the difference between the cardiac death and brain death, so they call us and say that we want to donate organs. So in such a case, if it's a younger person who has had a cardiac death, we have facilitated eye donation and heart valve donation also. But if the death happens at home, it's normally an eye donation, like Dr. Nagesh said.
Right. Right. Okay.
Because most of the times the body has to be prepared for donation.
Right.
Because so most of the time it happens in the hospital where you maintain all those the blood pressure is maintained, the oxygen is maintained, so that everything is in a good, like you want you buy a product which is good and it can be used to the best and it can be utilized by the best. So that's why you want to keep each and every organ at the best level, because already a guy is already deceased. So why would you want to give him a suboptimal organ? Because the results then would always be suboptimal. So that's why preparation of the organ for donation itself is a big process in itself. So a lot of firms go and you just prepare them. The heart is prepared, the liver is prepared, the lungs, and all the kidneys and all are prepared. So that by the time when you declare or the brain death or circulatory death, everything is in perfect condition.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nagesh.
Yeah.
Rishi, you wanted to add something on the aspect of religion.
More actually, less of religion, but more on the cremation.
Cremation, right.
It's all interconnected. And I'm glad actually Lalitha already covered that to an extent. And I just want to tell people that, I chose that because for me, and by the way, that's my brother over there who's in charge of when I die, what to do. So I made my will clearly to say that, look, all organs that can be used should be used for donation, right? At the time of my death. And then after that, the body should go for medical science, for research purposes and everything. So at home, there's going to be no body for me. It's like there's just going to be a celebration. Oh, Rishi finally popped it and he's gone and he's wherever, right? So for me, I actually took the decision to go out of the whole cremation process. So although I'm born Hindu, but we're atheists from the beginning and we're kind of logical and think about what's practical and things like that. So I don't know about religious leaders. The aspect that I wanted to just bring was that I guess I keep looking at a lot of information on what's right, wrong, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and one of the things that I found it's a kind of a movement more than a religion, but they actually promote this whole idea. It's where they actually gave me the copy of people in the movement of the will. So I actually took their copy and used to make my will to say that my body will be donated to the hospital first for any organs, and then it'll go to medical science. It's actually clearly written, and we define how to do it and everything. So that's a religious movement that actually talks about organ donation as, and not just cremation or burial. The remaining part of the body should just go straight for medical science. So that's part of their prescribed.
Yeah, I think I will come back to Lalitha on that. I think that's not the way it works, is what my understanding is. But
I'd like clarity because he's going to execute it. So please,
yeah,
if you can
so,
share that.
yeah.
Sorry, what is the question?
No, so can you kind of do this in sequence? Can you say that yes, you want your organs to be donated, and maybe just the eye might work, but if it's other organs, can your
once
body
the
still be
solid
given?
once the solid organs are retrieved, if the solid organs are donated, like our kidneys, liver, heart are all donated, that body is of no use
No
to the
use to
medical
students.
college. Yeah,
Correct.
the organs have to be intact because it's for learning, it's for
Correct.
practice purposes, so they want everything to be intact. So once you have donated your organs, such bodies are of no use to the medical college.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's only the eye, then it can
That's
still.
okay. That's
That's
okay.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. I think that is one of the many,
Yes.
one of the key misconceptions that goes
Yeah.
around. I've had this
Yes.
conversation with a few people over the last few
Yeah.
days. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think Dr. Nagesh, are you dropped off again? I think looks like he has. Um, any final words, Lalita, as for, I think we probably are at the wrap up. So any final words for our audience?
Well, there's a lot of awareness around the Organ Donation Week and Organ Donation Day. This type of talks, this type of webinars have to happen on a daily basis. And I feel that this has to be like a coffee table discussion. People tend not to talk about death in families. And I've heard several of them, when they talk about donation, like I made a presentation to Rotary yesterday, and somebody was saying, a Rotarian said, when I start talking about organ donation, my family says,
Correct.
no, not about that, shub shub bolo, that sort of a thing. So I always say that, don't we talk about life insurance? We want to secure our families. So that means we are talking about death at that time. So we know about the uncertainty of life. So this is also something that you should bring up. Even if the family says, why are you talking about this? At least in the corner of their head, they will know that it is something that is of interest to us.
Right.
So we do have to broach this subject, and it has to become the usual conversation in families. It should not be something, it shouldn't be like a taboo subject. Everyone should come forward. And like I said in the beginning, you don't lose a single paisa. You don't lose anything out of this. When I'm dead and gone, the family only thinks about when do we dispose the body. Nobody is going to say, when do we dispose Lalitha Raghuram? They're only going to say, when do we dispose the body? So our name is converted into body at that time. So let's all get to know the reality. Let's all think about what we can still do when we go away. And that is true celebration of life.
Right.
And it's a legacy that we can leave. And for generations together, I'm a classic example. For generations together, the families are going to feel proud of what they have done.
Right. Thank you. Thank you to
Thank you.
donors like yourself, Lalita, as well as the work you do. Dr. Nagesh, any final word to our
In a
audience?
country of 130 odd billion people, if we have a scarcity of donors, it's a shame on us, because we boast of so many people, but we don't have organs. And most of the organs are wasted just because you don't have enough knowledge of donations, or it's a taboo speaking, like you're talking about. But any program, a sustained program, can't. It may start at an individual level, or it may reach, but it has to be taken up by the government. And until the government starts promoting organ donation actively, I don't think this will function well. It will function in pockets where people a lot of people like Madam and a lot of other donors who have been educated about them, they will start giving it. But for the general population and for the layman to understand that this is an important part of your life, it should be headed by the governments. of which I think Tamil Nadu is the only state government which is actively promoting and it's actively involved in organ donations and all. In other places, because of taboos relating to various other organ problems and organ donations and all those things, even in hospitals, bigger hospitals, when you talk of organ donation openly, also you are hushed down. Okay, no. People will start thinking that there is a scam going on. So these are things I think which should which should not come into or crop up into your mind when you're discussing organ donation, because organ donation is for helping so many people, because each body can save, as it's written there, 8 lives, minimum 9 in some people. So it all depends on us. So I think by agencies like you and all for promoting and taking up all these creating these programs on webinars. So this is one small way, but I think the majority should happen from the government side.
Right. Yes, I agree. I think just as there was a campaign for eye donation that started, a couple of decades ago, or maybe longer, we probably need that at that scale as well. Okay, there's one question. I don't know what that really means, but I'll ask it anyway. So the waiting period for heart is very less. Do you think the awareness about heart transplant benefit is yet to be established? Is very less or is very more? Okay,
actually the number of people who are enrolled in heart
okay. Okay, the enrollment is low is what he's saying. Okay.
Is low because it's a costly process. Every transplant process runs in lakhs. And the problem with the heart is you can't live. It's only cadaver donation. So the number of donations happening is also less. So that's why the heart becomes so important for us. And waiting list is there, but we'll just have to. That's the reason why if governments promote organ donation, and then the list comes down.
Right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Nagesh, and Rishi and Shweta. If you can come on and just thank you as well for sharing your experience and your views on organ donation. Shweta, thank you for joining, and I think you're on mute, but thank you, because I think it's important for people to see the benefit of transplants, and even for complex transplants like heart transplant, for which there is no option, right? We have to do diseased organ transplants only. So I think thank you everyone for joining, and the attendees as well on all our platforms. And again, once again, thank you, Dr. Nagesh and Lalitha, and thank you, Biocon, for supporting this initiative as well. So
thank you.
Thank you
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.